and welcome to my podcast on real relationships. My name is Sophie Passon, and I am a relationship expert, international speaker, and best-selling author of a book, Your Other Half. I decided to start this podcast because, in my opinion, relationships are currently not being portrayed as what they really are. Whether you're watching the news or on social media, TV, the perception given to people is wrong, and my aim is to talk about what happens in the real world, talk about real stories, and listen to what real people think, do, or go through, as opposed to creating expectations of something that doesn't actually exist. I may not agree with everything that is said by my guests, but it is their chance to express their opinions and their stories. And here today we have Lex McKee, and we're going to talk about a very controversial subject, relationships and religion. Hi Lex, how are you?
Good morning, Sophie. Good to be back again.
So shall we open the can of worms?
Yes.
Tell us about religion for you. What is religion to you?
Religion for me is a dirty word.
Right.
Dirty word. Those of us who have a personal relationship with God, it's bang on your money. You know, it's about a relationship with a personality.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, religion is the frame stuck around institutionalized structures, which may have been good and may be good at this time.
Mm-hmm.
But you can actually have the structure without the relationship. And as soon as that happens, you get self-righteousness, bigotry, hypocrisy, and all the other things that people go, I wouldn't go to church because of those Christians.
Yeah.
In fact, I read a recommended Terry Pratchett book called Small Gods.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about a religion that hasn't got God in it at all. It's all about worshipping the structure. So politicians are religious. Political parties are religious. Humanism can be religious. If you're following a structure, a system, rather than having an intimate relationship, a conversational relationship, a vulnerable relationship with a deity, then I don't think it's a good thing. So you and I would probably agree on saying spirituality. I think spirituality in relationships is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I was brought up as a Catholic, and surprise in France. But with me, I went to the Holy Communion. I was going to go to the confirmation, and without boring people with a story, I got absolutely disillusioned and disappointed with a particular thing, and that was the end of it for me. What you just said, hypocrisy, self-righteousness, and I was only 12 at the time, but I just wrote that
You see through it. As a 12-year-old, you've got such clarity. You've got no filters of contempt that come in later on in life, the cynicism, and you see people. Something about Catholicism, if I may come back to that.
Yeah,
Protestants are arrogant, so we threw out Mary as the Catholic thing. That's the big thing that threw out. And I'm trying to think. It's Wang Gin or something like that. There's a lovely deity in Chinese spirituality, which is the mother figure. You'll find it in all religions anyway, if religion's positive, all spiritualities. And she has temples where grown people go and weep because they miss their mother. They miss the sacred feminine, and to have a whole vast movement that goes, well, Mary's just a normal person. No, she bloody well wasn't. Story through. Imagine that.
I don't see myself as religious in any way, shape, or form. As you just said, spiritual. I believe it's something bigger than us. I do believe in various things, but not as such in a religion. But in a funny kind of way, the Protestant way is probably more me than Catholic because of the values of hard work and stuff like that. That's kind of more me. But is this nurture versus nature? Because I've been in this country for such a long time now.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm not sure, and besides, I'm not going to go and become a Protestant either.
But you're going to have a relationship with the universe, aren't you?
Yeah.
People talk about the universe. My universe has a personality. And so I have a living, talking, crying, weeping, rejoicing relationship with a personality. In fact, 3 aspects of a personality, maybe 4. So Father, Son, and Holy Spirit are very, very different aspects of the Trinity with whom I have a different relationship. So it's at the heart of all I breathe and live and do. But I think the missing bit is Mary.
Right. Okay.
For me, I put my five fingers together, and I know our listeners can imagine steepling. So putting your little finger together, your ring finger, middle finger, index finger, and thumb together. That to me is the relationship with the divine.
Mm-hmm.
So the Father at the top, he's always the focus. Then you have what's called the finger of God, the Holy Spirit who takes action. So that's my index finger. The relationship finger, the wedding finger is Jesus, we're the bride of Christ. The little finger are the angels. And
Okay.
I've seen angelic action on my behalf, protecting me. And so many stories of my friends last night who have been protected against all odds by invisible figures. There was a lady last night who said she was on the platform ready to jump in front of the train. Her nephew had committed suicide. Life was horrible. She was being bullied, relationships again, and she was just about to jump. And a bloke tapped her on the arm and said, "What's the time, love?"
Yeah.
It shocked her out of it. She looked at her watch, turned around, and there was nobody there. Nobody. So I think angels are great for relationships too. They're called messengers. And then the thumb, the opposable thumb, is this. Without Mary, there's no incarnation of relationship.
Mm-hmm.
We have to have the sacred feminine as well.
Yeah, and I suppose to a degree, she was the backup team, wasn't she? The support team.
Absolutely. And stored it all up.
Mm-hmm.
Where did they get the stories from? I chatted to mum.
Yeah. So obviously you are a minister, aren't you?
Yes.
Do you want to explain to people what that involves? Because I'm sure some of them don't know.
It's very much a servant. So true spiritual leadership is servant leadership. In NLP, which your listeners will be very familiar with, I'm going to assume, we talk about pacing and leading.
Mm-hmm.
So heavy-handed leadership, which we all have been bullied by, is I have my will and I am going to push that on you. Even if I do that as the screen, that's a very unpleasant gesture.
Deprecating.
Yeah. And not good in any way, shape, or form. If the building's on fire, I don't mind a leader that says, go that way. And doesn't build a cozy relationship. And I'm going to do what I'm told. But when it comes to, I work with volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm paid.
Yeah.
Why should they do what I will?
Yeah.
So it's about pacing their values, their model of the world. And then if I can do something to lead them into fulfilling their dream, that's what a minister should do, I think.
Yeah, and I think, a friend of mine wasn't particularly religious in any way, shape, or form. Anyway, something happened, and I think she kind of turned to God, for one of the better words, her words, which was just because she couldn't see hope, she couldn't see anything really, in fact, a little bit bewildered as to what had happened to her and her family as such, which, is fine, but her husband wasn't so keen on the idea. And that's where I feel that, the relationship that we have with religion or spirituality or whatever can really work for or against you in your relationships.
Definitely. The love of my life, my first girlfriend, I dumped because I became a born again, bigoted, painful Christian, and she didn't.
Yeah.
I have to move on with God. Biggest regret of my life. What a lovely girl.
Fair enough.
She through hell after that, which I could have been there for her, because the Christian view of relationships is that the men must lay down their lives for the women. There's none of this bossy. You do what I'm told. You submit to me, as it says in the wedding vows. No, guys, you need to lay down your life for your wife. That means laying down your life for your wife, laying down your will, your arrogance, your ego, and making her the focus of your devotion under God. God first, wife second. So, what's not to love about that? How can I make your life better today, darling? Just,
Yeah, but I think that, to a degree, putting the other person first from time to time as well, not taking that for granted is the basis of any healthy relationship.
Yeah. Good old Penny still washes my towels, bless her. Not good old Penny, but Penny. And every time I put my face towel to my face, I thank the world, universe for her, because that thoughtfulness, I don't have to do it, but it's such a kinesthetic
Yeah.
reminder of comfort that's important to me.
And I think that the thing with it is that regardless of religion, we are all in a relationship going to evolve through life, and especially if you're someone for a long time. The problem with relationship is, no, not with relationship, with religion, is that sometime, because of some of the, and I'm talking in general here, the doctrines or whatever the values or beliefs are, that means that your values become a little bit misaligned, doesn't it?
Yeah. If they come
So
disconnected
how do you deal with that?
the original. I don't know if we told the story about the lovely young couple where the wife was cooking this week and she cooked the family speciality, which was a meat joint.
Mm-hmm.
And her husband was wanting to learn how to do it as well. And she cut the ends off the meat joint. And he said, so why are we cutting the ends off the meat joint? She said, actually, I don't know. I need to ask mum because that's the only way we've ever done it. So when they went back to mum, they said, well, why do you do it? She said, I don't know either. I learned it from Gran, the recipe, and that's the way we've always done it in the family. Mm-hmm. So there's the doctrine passed on from generation to generation. Fortunately, Gran was still with us. So they went to see Gran and said, why do we cut the end of the joint? She said, that's the only way I could get it in the pan, loves.
Right. Yeah, but it is that, isn't it? A lot of things, on questions. I remember talking to someone who was telling me, that Boxing Day in England, you have like 4 different meat joints, and you have mashed potato, and you have this, and you have that. And I'm like, I don't know any other family where they do that. And I questioned her, challenged her on it, and said, I don't think that's the tradition in Britain. I think that actually it's your family tradition. And she was absolutely shocked. So started asking various people who basically pointed out that indeed it's just a family thing. It's not a British thing.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you think
thought that as being inverted brackets the gospel.
Yes. Yeah, but good word. Gospel truth. So this is our culture. This is what we take to be self-evident truths, to use the American Constitution. Yeah. These truths are self-evident. Are they? You questioned again.
How do you know?
Yeah, good old NLP. What would happen if you didn't?
Yeah, so I was doing a bit of research ahead of this and a bit on what we just touched on about misalignment of values. It seemed that same faith marriages, for want of better words, but let's call it relationships, could have worked better kind of together unless, again, someone changed for whatever reason. But interfaith marriages were far more of a challenge, even though someone may change the religion or whatever. Do you think that interfaith marriages can cause issues for the future, or is it like both people are going to have to learn to really compromise?
I think anytime you mix cultures, you're inviting an opportunity to clarify or confuse.
Yeah.
When you get the values going, like you meet so many people where one partner is Catholic, another one's Protestant, they love each other. Yeah. They come together in that time that they don't notice the other one leaves the lid off the toothpaste, and then the honeymoon period's over, and suddenly chunk down or chunk up to values and go, well, that's the way we need to bring up the kids. They need to go through that pathway. Well, we didn't do it in our family. And so there's that discomfort. There's an interesting proverb that says, don't be unequally yoked.
Right.
And the idea is 2 oxen together, and you might have a mature oxen and a little oxen. The little oxen might be stronger, but it's not experienced. And so it will pull and push at the wrong time. It won't work in harmony. On a couple, regardless of gender, I'm not talking about heterosexual here, a team that is equally balanced, equally yoked, is going to have naturally a much, much easier journey. It doesn't mean the other one can't work, because there's so much richness if we have clarification instead of confusion. But don't expect an easy ride.
No, because as you say, the thing like, how do we bring up the children is far more important, for each person than something that appears minute.
Yeah, exactly. We could say we have the same God as Catholics and Protestants, which we do. We have the same Bible, which we almost do.
Yeah.
And particularly if you're a high Anglican, you do. And the truth is there are all sorts of distinctions that make an important difference below that. You know, the concept of cutting off your nose to spite your face? That's the Protestants going up smashing noses off statues to defile them.
Oh, really? Fair
Yes,
enough.
so Catholicism would use the visual aids of statues and pictures to help teach the lesson. And of course, the Protestants going, well, you can't venerate a statue, that's idolatry, so smash the nose off it. It's just like, ugh.
Fair enough.
Talk
Yeah.
about a blue clash.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I think the secondary issue with all this is sometimes people will change for the other person, and that's not just in terms of religion, but I think that it highlights it even more. There's someone I know, I can't give too many details because I don't want that person to be identified or identify themselves. But from something that she was it's quite an extreme to another extreme, for want of better terms. And I'm watching this from afar, and I just feel like she's completely losing herself and not being herself, not being true to herself.
Authentic, yeah.
Just because she's desperate to be with that guy.
Mm.
And that doesn't feel right either.
So if you unpack that with your logical levels, behaviors are matching what he wants, or
Not hers.
But the beliefs are probably not aligned.
Well, no, because she's changing it that much, but she's making it her beliefs. And I think that's where it's self-esteem, isn't it? When you've got your self-esteem, you do anything.
Yeah, yeah.
And I find that quite frightening.
Yes. Well, this is history over and over again with people in relationships, those desperate. I'm not recalling at the moment the 6 basic human needs, but one has to be that acceptance and love, doesn't it? And we'll do anything for love. I think Meatloaf said, so it must be true.
But then it's also self-awareness, isn't it?
But your listeners are an unusual group of people who will be peculiarly self-aware. The vast majority, as Thoreau, I think, said it, live lives of quiet desperation. They don't know about finding a purpose, and then it's always there for everyone. They don't know that they don't need anyone else in their life to be whole and full and say it's enough. This is the bonus.
Exactly. But people define themselves by whether they're in a relationship or not.
Gender, politics, color of the skin, intelligence. I'm deal regularly with I'm too old for that. Okay. Not me personally, but I'm too tired, I'm too old. So very, very well-meaning, high-value driven people going, I just haven't got the energy anymore. And they're kind of right, you know.
Yeah, but I think it's belief in belief. Because if I take my mother, you know, from the day she retired, I need to rest. Why do you need to rest? Because I'm the age that I am.
Yes.
No, you rest if you're tired. You don't just rest because you're an age.
My mum died as soon as she retired.
Did you really?
In her head.
Right, okay.
I am retired. It's an affirmation, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's got tired in it.
Well, I think some people, I mean, not that it is the case of my mother, but some people, to them, retirement means the end of having a purpose, the end of being useful, isn't it?
Yeah. We've got a couple of chaps that I work with who have got either neurological disorders or other things, both of them massively practical, massively helpful to their families, their communities, etc. And they cannot do what they used to do. They physically cannot do it anymore. And you can see the despair. You know, so my job as a minister would be to come alongside and go, you're not what you do, you're what you are, but you're probably not ready for that yet. So let's think about what you can do that is valuable in your site and valuable in other sites while we work on your core self-esteem. That is, I am is enough.
Well, I think, and this is the thing, and why people turn to religion at times is to find that purpose.
Yeah. And a paradigm that makes sense in part. Most of the truly spiritual people know can't get their head around the problem of suffering and Ukraine and all that sort of horrible stuff that humans do to other humans.
I do question that at times. If there is a God or whatever, why are some of these things happening?
Why do you permit this? So there is that their ability to handle paradox. God is love, God is light, God is laughter. So why do we cry? Why is there so much darkness? Why is there so much hatred? There's a funny cartoon of a guy talking to Jesus, and he said, Jesus, why do we have all this misery in the world? And Jesus goes, oh, that is so spooky. I was just about to ask you exactly the same thing.
Yeah, because we're human, isn't it, really?
Yeah, yeah. People go, oh, that flood took out thousands of innocent people. And that's the first time they turned to God after the flood.
Mm-hmm.
And they go, well, do you have any concept of what God means in ancient history? God is the deity that you keep pleased. How much worship have you done? How much sacrifice have you done? Oh, I'm a good person. No, that any Jewish person under the old dispensation, I think is about 50% of their income went on their worship. The tithe, the 10%, was the starting point. There were free will offerings and other stuff as well. Religion in their mode, very, very expensive and very, very helpful in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
If you think God is first in your life, look at your diary. How are you spending your time? Look at your bank book. How do you spend your money? Then tell me God is first.
Do you think that most people who are religious think like that? I don't.
No. I think we've got a very, very soft form of Christianity, well, Christianism. I don't think it's true Christianity in the West, which is not demanding. Jesus said, if you're going to follow me, you're going to lay down your life like you do for your wife. Mm-hmm. You're going to lay down your life, pick up your cross and follow me. That's not a happy message.
No, it's not. No.
Until you do it, and then you go, I am so free now. I am free of other people's opinions. I'm free of materialism. I'm free of people judging me.
Be that, do that without necessarily having religion.
Absolutely. We've had a recent experience where I was really in crisis. Mm-hmm. A friend of mine who you know very well, and I was renting some space off, never missed a payment, never there, ideal tenant, gave me notice because she had a better offer, I think. So I went into crisis mode because I didn't know how to solve the problem. And the church walked away from it. The church leadership said, we will not help you. Some tiny lady with a baseball cap called Ali went past Penny on my birthday. We were moving stuff desperately at the last moment.
Yeah.
And Penny's politely Dorset and British. So she's dying of this cough thing. She said, Ali says to her, can I help you? And she said, oh, no, I'll be all right. Next day I said, Penny, you're not coming with me. You can't do this. You are so ill. So I'll do it on my own. It's all right.
Yeah.
And then Ali walked past, the cap so down you can hardly see her face. She said, would you like a hand? And I said, yes, please. And for 2 days, this complete and utter stranger with no church background, no religious background, helped me free of charge, both ends, to load the van and unload the van. I am in love with people that will do that kind of thing. And there was no agenda whatsoever. There actually was a backstory. The interesting thing is angel means messenger. So there was my angel. She brought me a message. She taught me loads of stuff.
Yeah.
But angels have stories too. And she'd had to put her dog down the day before my birthday. She was massively grieving. They were inseparable. She's on the spectrum.
Yeah.
Very, very high performing ADHD. Genius. 2 hours sleep a night.
Yeah.
She's an amazing woman. And her soulmate. It's just like, I need a distraction. Let me help you. That is life to me.
Yeah, no, totally. But the other thing I was going to say is that sometimes religion feels a little bit like a hobby, and God rest her soul, but my nan, I remember, she was one of those, at Christmas you had to go to Mass on Christmas Eve. As a child, there was no option. It's only once really, we got a bit older, or she was a bit older, so that she couldn't really march us there. They didn't happen anymore. But anyway, one particular day, she'd come to stay with my mum and dad and me for a few days during the week. And I used to like that because obviously I'm an only child. So, his company is different, isn't it? It makes it a bit more exciting. And I came back from school excited to come and see her. And I said to my mum, where is she then? And she goes, oh, she's gone to a funeral. And I'm like, she what? how does she know this person? No, she doesn't. She just wanted to go and listen to the mass. And I was like, okay, I've heard it all now, really. But and that's where it feels like a little bit of a hobby, or am I being too judgmental? She just
You are not being too judgmental. I think for many people in comfortable middle class Christianity in the West, it's a country club. It's a great way to network. It's a great way to have social interaction.
Your mates.
Do you need to believe? No, you don't.
Yeah.
Jesus is pretty scary when he says, why do you call me Lord, Lord, and don't do what I tell you? Many people are going to say to me on that day, Lord, we did this and we did that. And he said, go away. I don't know you. Go away. I don't know you.
Yeah, when you say like, follow me and pick up your cross, most people are like, oh, come on. What do we do as humans? We seek pleasure and we seek to avoid pain. So if you're offering me to go and have a bit of pain, I don't think I'm up for the job, sort of thing.
We're getting into deep psychology now. So
I know we are.
We're going to go Freud and Skinner versus Viktor Frankl. So Viktor Frankl, with the survivor of the death camps, lost his family. He said, I disagree with Freud. It's not about pleasure. It's about meaning. A human's quest for meaning is the fundamental driver of our conscious mind. I need to have a purpose.
Yeah.
There was a lovely story about a lady who was interviewed in the bank, and she'd been in the bank for decades through very, very difficult times of transitions, like most bankers. And the interviewer said, you've been one of the most consistent, lauded member of staff. You've been a rock. I've talked to your colleagues. You're amazing. Why do you do banking? Because in my perception, it's not a particularly exciting job. And she smiled and she turned around the picture on her desk, and it was the picture of her family. And she said, it's all for them.
Yeah.
She had a higher meaning and purpose that drove her to deal with the necessities of life, the uncomfortableness of dealing with people's accounts when they're in trouble and stuff like that. No, I'm doing it all for my family. Boom.
It's interesting because as part of like what I do, I obviously have to get to know people very quickly and very well indeed. And I was quite surprised how many people don't have a purpose and don't particularly want one either.
Well, with a purpose comes instant accountability because you're always judging yourself against, if you come to make a decision, what are you going to base that decision on in the moment of choice?
Yeah.
Do I go for this or go for that? And there's a wonderful true story. Our British rowers, who are now so famous around the world as Olympians, were not so. And the turning point was one particular team that got together and they came up with a simple mantra, which I'd love to adapt for every client of mine. And their mantra was, will this make the boat go faster?
Yeah.
That was it. Boom. One principle. Oh, we love what you're doing. We want to applaud what you're doing as the Olympic team. Come to this great banquet and party. Will this make the boat go faster? No, I'll have a hangover tomorrow, and when we practice, I'm going to be wrecked.
Yeah.
I know what I'm like. So they wouldn't go.
Yeah.
And for the period it needed to be ready for the Olympics, that was the only period. It was for a set period of time. Will this make the boat go faster? We've all got that phrase. And if you can find that phrase.
Yeah, totally. But again, we go back to self-awareness and also taking responsibility, because some people would choose to go into religion, I think, sometimes, just because it removes the responsibility of life from them. They just give it to someone else, God.
Yeah. Hilarious example of training, I won't say the religion, but pilots of another nation, a strong belief system that it was the will of God to do this and that. And every time they fluffed up their training, they said, well, it was the will of God.
Yeah.
Absolute get out of jail free clause. About all the people that die because the pilot didn't take responsibility. It's just like, oh, and then you get the other horrible airline stories where a co-pilot will defer to the captain because he's the authority figure, and they can see something's wrong, like you saw as a 12-year-old, that there were things wrong with the religion, and won't challenge the authority. There's a very famous Korean air crash because the cabin crew would not challenge the captain. I think 300 people died
just
because
because of
of
that.
not challenging.
But I think the other thing as well, when we're talking about meaning just now, is that what people forgetting religion for a minute, and like, the deeper purpose of life, meaning is something that we give to everything.
Mm.
Our emotions, our feelings, our relationship with other people, even friends or whatever. And that meaning defines how it's going to go. But they forget that you can change the meaning.
Yeah. It's a very, very interesting form of prejudice, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I notice you've got black fingernails. Nail
Yeah.
polish, is it black?
It's black. Yeah.
Are you a witch?
Oh, of course I am.
And that's a typical example of jumping to conclusion, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
if someone's got that frame, you've got really interesting jewelry on. Oh, I bet she's into the occult. No evidence whatsoever.
I wouldn't wear certain things if I didn't have certain beliefs or certain things. Like the crystal around my neck is a white quartz and it's for clarity, and that's why it's on my throat to try and be more authentic.
Yes.
And
Yes.
the dragon, I bought, God, I was 23 at the time. I bought that in Cornwall. Absolutely loved the dragon, but then I discovered it actually means protection. That works for me. So
clarity and protection. Yep.
exactly, authenticity and protection. So, I've got an explanation, shall we call it, for it. But yeah, you could argue in my younger days I was probably seen as a bit of a goth. Most of my wardrobe is black. Just there's a reason for that once again. That is actually a practical reason. I suffer from hyperhidrosis, which is excessive sweating. And if you have anything that's coloured and your armpits start to go,
You see it.
people take the piss out of you. And as a 14-year-old or whatever, that's not what you want. Obviously, I'm on medication now, so it's not so obvious, it's not so bad. But what I'm trying to say is that, yes, there are certain things we can read into, but there is sometimes a completely logical explanation behind it.
Indeed. That's the old assume, isn't it?
Yeah.
People break it into ass, you, me. When as soon as we assume, we make an ass out of you and me.
But the problem
It's
is,
not very easy to have a conversation without doing those generalizations, solutions, and distortions, is it?
and so many people do assume. I mean, I think once I've been doing NLP for 10 years, I think, nearly now. So, at the beginning, you see it, and when you're learning the stuff, and then obviously you become better. But now I pick it up. And I just want to throw my head in my hands all the time because I'm like, how are you living your life like this?
Yeah,
but then I become I judge them as well. So I shouldn't do that because that's how they are. And one thing I've learned is that before I would probably try to educate people by telling them, oh, you think that, but blah, 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 or challenge it, whatever. And the truth of the matter is, you can't educate someone until we ask you.
exactly.
So I don't do that anymore.
One of my former partners who bears a striking resemblance to you. So it was interesting because whenever I talk to you, there is a filter.
Yeah.
It's like your ex's name when everyone got their name. It's just like there is an instant attribution of it's not such word attributing. It is now. It's positive association.
Yeah. I get that.
But she was so funny, and she'd go to me, "Don't use that NLP shit on me."
Yeah. I know. So obviously she didn't want to become self-aware necessarily, but what if someone wants to become more self-aware? Because let's be realistic, the more you know about yourself, the better you are going to be within yourself and with others.
But it's interesting, Sandy was so sophisticated. She was very self-aware and wanted to become more self-aware. Okay. So that was a deliberate tease.
Right, okay.
It's a bit like where a couple share the cleaning duties, and it's one's turn to do it, and they don't do a very good job. If somebody's sophisticated and a little bit wicked, they might write "I love you" in the dust on the mirror or the table.
Yeah.
So at one level it's going, let's play, I love you. And the other level, clean a table. Yeah. And he has that wit and that cleverness. So that was rather delightful. I enjoyed it. But my favorite model for becoming increasingly self-aware of the way we trade meanings is something called complex equivalence. And don't switch off if that sounds weird. It just means this means that.
Yeah.
So I know I am loved by my partner because she doesn't criticize my driving. How stupid is that?
Yeah, but it's love languages, isn't it? People
Yeah.
don't realise what they see as being love, isn't it, really?
So
Oh,
what do I
happy.
do to her? I don't criticize her driving. And
Yeah.
she goes, you don't love me anymore. And I go, what are you talking about? I never criticize your driving.
Yeah, and then people are like, what are you on about?
Love means don't criticize your driving. And she
Yeah,
goes,
yeah,
no, it doesn't. It means rubbing my feet when I'm tired and making me a nice coffee. Oh, I didn't get the memo on that. You just did. And suddenly the relationship.
people don't understand that there are different types of showing your love. And because they're basing it on their own as opposed to the other person, they feel that,
Yes.
they're not loving them. But then the next question, how do you know you're loved by God, for instance?
Oh, what a wonderful question. And that is something that's changing because I bought into a model of Christianity that was health, wealth, and happiness.
Mm-hmm.
And my path has not been one of health, wealth, and happiness.
Mm-hmm.
So I have had the big dark night of the soul. And you go, well, if he's a loving God and he promises health, wealth, and happiness in the scriptures, something's wrong.
Yeah.
And you can take it on yourself and go, well, what have I done? What have I done to deserve this? Or you can go back and look at the scriptures properly and go, that's never, ever on offer.
Right.
It's a bonus when certain other things. So my favorite scripture is, beloved, I pray that you prosper in all things and be in health. So it's in the Bible, New Testament, absolutely God's will. Beloved, I pray you prosper and be in health, even as your soul prospers. And it's a conditional.
Yeah.
As you look after your mind, your will, your emotions, your self-esteem, your belief systems, the structure behind your cognition, as that prospers, you will financially prosper and be in health. But if you have stinking thinking, you're going to have sinking thinking. Simple as that. Change your mind, you change your circumstances.
But don't you think that sometimes as well? Because as you were like quoting it, I'm just thinking some people, the perception of that would be health, wealth, and happiness for all. That's what they would read into that. So there's an element of interpretation as well, isn't there?
There is absolutely an element, and I think I wriggled out of your question, really.
Yeah.
How do you know that?
You have a bit, but now.
God loves me. My life has changed, and I don't really need to go into details, although they're very, very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Changed in the last couple of months through one prayer, which I'd love to share with your listeners. But it is very circumstantial.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing coincidental, providential, serendipitous activity where you go, God has to be alive in my life for that to have happened.
But don't you think that sometimes, because I sometimes feel that even the bad things happen for a reason.
Everything must serve us.
That sometimes as well we look for signs a little bit more or too much, because I know a couple of people would do. Everything's a sign. I'm like, how is this a sign? Especially when it's been a sign for the last 10 years and your life is still the same. So I'm not sure where the sign is here. But there's also an element of sometimes you just get a bit of good luck.
Yeah. Yeah. I believe most definitely in random evil. You know, why did so many good people get COVID? Because COVID was in the earth. It was that simple. And if somebody coughs and sneezes, you're exposed to it. It's nothing to do with your moral righteousness. It is to do with the systems we put in place in healthcare and being exposed to risk.
So again, so you say through this prayer, everything changed in the last 2 months and coincidence, whatever. But how do you know that's God as opposed to just a bit of good luck?
Well, that's the joy of faith, isn't it? I don't know.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, it's faith.
And
yeah.
it is a weight of evidence. It's such a good question, Sophie. I
Do you
love
think
it.
it's confirmation bias? You finding
And finding God's approval in this, which is why we have different religions, because all the religions can point to say, well, God's blessed me in this, whatever blessing means.
Yeah.
The heart of it is, if my life was pants, as it regularly has been, I always go back to the fact that Jesus said, no one has got greater love than this, to lay their life down for their family, their friends, even their enemies, as he did. That is the point, the touch point.
Mm-hmm.
So if nothing ever good happened to my life again, I would nevertheless have a model of somebody, even if he was mistaken. And that's the joy of the historical Jesus. He said, don't take my boys, because they should have all been arrested in the garden. When the Romans came to arrest him and his followers, he said, don't take my boys, take me. I'll give you no hassle. And he took it for the team. So whether there was a resurrection or not, of course, my whole life is founded on the fact that there was a resurrection in my mind, a belief, not a knowledge, a belief. But it's still the ultimate sacrifice. And you don't see that in any other religion, where the guru lays down his life for the disciples. Again, that's servant leadership.
Yeah, that's very true. So we've completely gone round in circles. No, we haven't gone round in circles. We've just completely
Completed the circle.
Left, right, and centre. And we're kind of running out of time as well now. So
I'll share that prayer with you then, because even if you don't believe, it'll do amazing things. It's like magic. So it comes from a little book called The Prayer of Jabez, who I'd never heard of. Mm-hmm. And I did the arrogant Bible college thing. I got a degree in theology. I never heard of this guy. Well, he's only got 2 verses in the Bible, and it's in one of the most boring passages in the Bible, a genealogy. So this dude begat that dude and that dude and that. And then for some reason, the chronicler changes his tack and says, Jabez was more honorable than his brothers. And you go, okay, what did he do? And the only thing we know he did is pray a prayer.
Right.
And it's a selfish prayer.
Right.
He said, I call upon the God of Israel. Israel means the God who prevails. So I call upon the God who can do stuff. I call upon the God who can do stuff, that you would bless me indeed. Nothing about his family.
Yeah. Just him.
Bless. It's double word. Bless me indeed. That you would extend my territory. Self.
Yeah.
On the surface of it. I don't think it's selfish at all, but it's an interesting prayer. That your hand would be with me, that you would protect me from evil, me, that I might not cause pain. And that's the interesting bit, because his name means pain.
Right.
So his mother called him Pain because she had lots of pain in childbirth. Can you imagine the joy at school? Oh, Jabez, you're a pain. And he changed his personal history through that prayer, that he might not live out his name.
But do you not think, like, going back to being selfish and safe, I sometimes think that, it goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning, and where people go wrong sometimes. You are in charge, you do the thing, and if you're happy in yourself, then someone else is going to complete your life, not be your life. So yes, maybe it is a bit selfish, but actually maybe he just got that if he's a happy person, he can actually help people better.
I think it's massively authentic. How can I love?
It is what a human person would say or do.
As I love myself, if I don't love myself. Mm-hmm. If I don't love myself, you can bet your bottom dollar I'm going to project all manner of nasty stuff onto other people, because I don't feel good about myself.
Yeah.
Feel good about myself? Boom. Game on.
Yeah, totally. So anyway, on that note, share with us one last pair of wisdom.
I think the golden rule is all we need. And the golden rule is do unto others as you'd have them do to you. And it's proactive. Mm-hmm. It's preemptive. So many philosophies, a lot of the Stoics would say, do as you've been done by. So mirror what people have done to you. Yeah, Jesus said, no, you go and do to others first what you want them to do to you. And the simple example of that is tipping in a restaurant. Sometimes, very rarely, but sometimes I will tip in advance, a massive tip, the service I want to receive. It's an interesting concept. So
yeah, completely.
Be first to give, be first to encourage, be first to be kind. It's a wonderful game.
And funny enough, a customer of mine a few years ago was about, she was not getting the support she needed from the partner and blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, you go first. And she went, no, he's got to come first. I was like, no. Just try it. You do one thing first and we see what happens next. And it's kind of the olive branch, isn't it? It's the first person that does it, then it's reciprocated, and then he carries on. But no, sometimes we can be so stubborn that no, they must make the first move.
Yes.
Because it means that they love me. Where actually, no, it isn't. You've got to take responsibility as well sometimes.
It's interesting, you don't have to do it for long either.
No.
In the 80s, it was a wonderful book called The First 4 Minutes. And they said the first 4 minutes of any new interaction, like coming home from work, getting up in the morning, sets the tone for everything that follows.
Yeah.
So you get home from work, and what do most people say? Oh, it's nice to see you, kids. Give daddy or mummy a few minutes just to get in through the door because I'm so tired. Whereas they've been bursting with joy to see you, like your granny, off to the funeral. So I had some friends who would pull over in a lay-by before they got home and deal with the nonsense of the day. Just let it go. When they hit that door, they knew they only had to fake it for 4 minutes. Fake the energy and go, oh, come on, Tiger, daddy's at home. Hey, darling, I'll see you later. And you're grinning there, but that's exactly the response. It's just like you get the energy back that you invest into the system.
Exactly. Well, Lex, thank you so much once again. Always a very deep philosophical conversation. And for everybody else, if you enjoyed the show, then please subscribe, leave us a review, but more importantly, come back for the next episode. Thank you.